Hey there, survivors. Are you trying to run some higher difficulty games but experiencing some catastrophic failures? Well, fear not, because in this video, we're going to be going over some advanced techniques and strategies that will help you come out on top. So go ahead and grab your gear and let's get into it. Hey everyone, my name's Jax. In this video, we're actually going to be covering the advanced strategies for surviving the aftermath. And as you can see in this game, we have one federation can be formed. You know, the game's pretty much done. We also got this. This is complete. You can see the people cheering. We beat the game on 200% difficulty, so we are ready to rock. You can see here, all done. Generally, my guides have been catered towards newer players, but this is going to be covering more so for people that are trying to do advanced runs, especially runs with 200% difficulty and all the DLC. You can see that we have all the DLC active based off all the, everything that you're seeing here: Federation, Hope, Rebirth, all that fun stuff. Do keep in mind, I'm not going to be covering custom games just because certain settings make custom games really difficult, actually sometimes impossible to beat. So I'm just going to be covering normal games. Let's assume the following conditions. You're playing on 200% difficulty on a normal game and with all 3 DLC active. And I want you to keep in mind that this is actually a pretty challenging task, and I do not recommend it if you haven't even beat the game on 75% difficulty with all 3 DLC. If you need help working your way up to this difficulty, I actually have a milestones guide that will walk you through how to work your way up. But now I'm going to walk you through on how to set up your game properly and what you should be doing in higher tier games. So when you make your 200% difficulty run, it's pretty simple. You don't need tutorial. Assume that you know how to do all this stuff. When you get to here, it's pretty much just 4 all the way through. For a 75% run, it's 2 all the way through, and for a 50% run, it's 1 all the way through. So you're just going to be choosing everything as difficult as possible. Keep in mind, for this selection on difficulty, this actually influences how much your buildings produce. So your water wells, instead of producing 12, they're only going to produce 8. So there's a 33% nerf on water, and then for large wind turbines, it goes from 30 to 25. Not as big, you're reducing it by a 1/6, not as bad as a 1/3, but still a pretty decent hit. So this is the one that's really going to start hurting you the most. So you can see here on a 50% difficulty, with basically everything set to the easiest level, water wells produce 12 water. As you can see, this is only a 90% difficulty, but if we crank up the survivors difficulty, the last one, water wells only produce 8. So when it comes to ideology, if you're struggling with a 200% run, I actually recommend that you do the survival one. I highly recommend the survival ideology instead of the industrial. And the reason why is that there's 2 techs that really stand out to me. One is lumberjacks for the additional work slot, which saves you construction resources. And the other is survival skills, which gives a production speed 25% boost to both fish and venison. Both are going to be very strong in the early game, and honestly, those are the only 2 things that you really need for probably until mid-game anyways. So to have a 25% production boost to that is huge. The other ones are pretty good in this one, except for the upscale tents. I think upscale tents is a waste, but efficient heating is going to be coming on later in the game, because when you pivot from burners to radiators, that's going to be really good. Emergency harvest, very niche use, but it can help you out in a pinch, especially, we all forget things, right? So it is what it is. Now this goes against typically what I say when you should be going for progress in technology. The reason why is because if you are struggling with the 200% run and you can't even make it out of the beginning or mid game, you're not going to be able to utilize these. These are meant for mid to late game, especially late game, because this really benefits like automation production. Another one that's decent, and I will only recommend this one if you are struggling with the rebirth aspect of this, is this one, the take care and protect people. When it comes to rebirth stuff, you can get guard patrols, which gives an additional work slot on your guard posts. That's a really nice thing. It saves you construction resources. And prescriptions, which gives a 33% healing speed boost. This is huge. To be able to heal your people that much quicker is a very, very good thing. The other 2 are durability ones. I personally don't like that. And then the lathe for the weapons, it's okay. I typically don't really need to produce weapons in the first place because the world map has plenty of guns. You don't have to really worry about that. When it comes down to it, if you are struggling because of the rebirth aspect with all the monsters attacking you, choose this one. If you're struggling because you can't get off the ground due to resources issues, choose this one. If you are struggling late game, choose this one. For this case, we're just going to choose this one. I have a video on which starting specialists are the best. In my opinion, Platy is bar none the best one. You can't get her unless you have the Ultimate Colony Edition. Although I've seen some people say that they've got Platy even without having that. So if you have Platy, great. If not, Gloria is a good one. And any other scavenger or scientist is also good. A fighter is good too, but typically you don't really fight early game. And a scout, well, they just have higher speed, and that's pretty much it. They don't really have anything else going for them. So we're going to stick with Gloriosa and Platy. Those are my two favorites. You know, whatever we have here, pretty cool. And then when it comes to a map seed, I'll post a map seed for you to use. And the way you do that is you actually have to enter it here. You have to enter it in this format. But the reason why I'm bringing up a map seed is because you want to find a map that has water on both sides at the front, because you want to have access to fishing and water harvesting. This is non-negotiable in my opinion. You need to keep restarting your game until you get a map that has water in the front on both sides of the map. Otherwise, you're just going to keep making the game that much harder for you, and it's not really good. So in this case, you see we started on a pretty bad map. There's no water in the front at all. So this just makes the game so much harder for us. So if I were looking at this one, I would restart. We have a little bit of water over here, but it's not close. It's not to the front. You know what I mean? So in my opinion, I would just restart this one. This is not a good map. So this is a really good map. I like it. It's got water on both fronts, and this is huge for us. So it only took one restart, and if you want the map seed, I will go ahead and copy this map seed so that way you have it, so you can use it. So now that we have this map seed, let's go ahead and pause the game because we want to review our map. Everything that we do is going to be vitally important. Every move, every decision, you basically have to get 90 to 95% of your decisions correct in order to survive a 200% difficulty run. So what we want to do is, one, look at the soil fertility. We already know based off how the ground looks that the front is actually very soil fertile. So what does that mean? We want to actually avoid building in this area because of that. So if we place down our campsite, we want to place it away from this area because we want to conserve this area for farms and trees. Same thing for over here. So a good spot is actually, before we say where a good spot is, we also want to review where the pollution is. So we can see here there is a small pollution spot. Looks like there's a larger pollution spot here. Pretty massive one here too. That looks like fun. So you can kind of get a lay of the land of like what's going on around you. Actually, this is a really good seed because check this out. It's actually pretty open in the front over here. So with that being said, I'm actually going to go ahead and place my campsite as far away from the fertile soil as possible, which happens to be right here. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Let them do their thing. And again, we're placing it away from this because we want to conserve this. This is probably going to be good farmland. We probably will use this spot over here just because it's farther away, probably as the wood. We might use a little wood over here too. You know, we're not going to, you know, start off immediately with all farms because we don't have access to farms at the beginning. We have to, you know, we have to research that. You see that farms are the second one on the food line, but in my opinion, you should always be going for metal scavenging as soon as possible and then getting the trash evolution as well as reclaimable materials. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. So now that we have a kind of a decent view of what's going on around us, we can see here, this is pretty open for trees. And this is pretty open for farming as well as probably putting down some trees. This isn't because, you know, we could see there's a ton of pollution. So we'll probably want to avoid the right side of the map, unfortunately. Something to note is that we might not even use this spot as farms. We could technically use this because trees, when you have lumber camps, trees actually don't really benefit from like a higher fertility. You know, trees just produce wherever there is fertile soil in the first place. Farms benefit from high fertility because they produce food more effectively and efficiently. So eventually we might want to shift our farms to be in this little green slot right here given that there is pollution nearby, so we do have to clock that and keep that in mind. But I do see there is another fertile piece of land here, but there's a nice big medium pollution pile kind of blocking it. So can't really do too much about that, unfortunately. But everywhere else looks like it's just normal. Really good map seed. I just got this map randomly. I haven't seen this, but having a green spot in the front near water and then a yellow spot for trees and hunting venison, huge. This is a great seed to have. From here, I actually see a lot of questions about like layouts, like, oh, like what layout do you recommend for your base? And it's like, there's not really a layout that you do for a game, like, because every game is different. And you know, we were just talking about seeing where all the pollution is and then seeing where all the soil fertility is. I kind of gave you guys a layout right now of like how I look at the game and how I plan around it, because you want to plan around where all the pollution is and where all the soil fertility is. So here, you know, this is probably going to be our lumber and venison hunting spot. This will eventually become a farming spot because it's green. That's honestly, like, the fact that this is green is huge. There's not really a layout because every game is going to be different based off the map. And I can't tell you how many times I see people ask the same question: why are my people becoming irradiated? I'll tell you why. It's because of this. It's your people are walking through these irradiated piles and you're not looking. Pollution piles are the biggest culprit, and I guarantee if you just avoid them by building some roads, you're going to be better off by a long shot. With layouts, let's go ahead and place our first few items, just to kind of give you an idea of like where I would place these items. So we want to keep in mind, we want to be cognizant of these pollution piles. So for here, I don't really like tents, but you know, we're gonna have to make do with what we have. So something we want to do is we want to utilize as much of the map as possible without harming our people. So here I'm just gonna place these two tents because those are free. Our food storage, you know, there's not really too much you have to worry about food storage, so I'm just gonna place it somewhere. It looks like the majority of our scavenging is probably gonna occur up here, so I'm just going to place that down there, and then same for the stockpile. It's really not too important where you place these because you know they're pretty easy to replace. And then the water collector. So we're going to place this water collector. Let's place it over here. Actually, hold on. We have a medium pollution pile, so let's go and take a look at that. Or sorry, small. So it looks like it's out of reach, but if we place it here, we should be okay. But you can see the efficiency isn't too great. So do keep that in mind, that efficiency is affected by this stuff. But if we place it here, man, do we get a pretty high efficiency. So let's go ahead and place this one here. Kind of going into our green piles a bit, but not too much. So just on the edge of it, but for the bonus to water that we get, it's well worth it. So that kind of gives you an idea of like where I'm placing my items and like why I'm doing it. And from here, I would just build my colony around that. I'm going to be building my colony around the pollution piles, around all this stuff, and then centralizing my housing. That's the important thing, is you want your housing to be centrally located for your colony, wherever that may be. So here, this is a pretty central spot. We're going to be mainly working in this area, and then a little bit over here and a little bit over here. If my housing is right here, this is pretty much smack dab in the middle. So if someone has a job over here or over here or over here, they don't have to walk too far to get to where they need to go. That is a huge thing to have. So something to note is my advice about water wells in my water guide kind of falls off here. And the reason why it falls off, can't be placed on barren soil. That's honestly a bad thing. We do have the luxury of having a pretty decent soil fertility at the front, so we could place these, you know, really far. We could place this like here, and then probably place another here, and then probably place another here. That'll probably get us about 12, but again, it's not a lot. And also keep in mind is that the water production from these water wells are nerfed because we're on a higher difficulty. We could place one here, get a little bit more, but again, we're not getting a lot, you know what I mean? And something very interesting that I recently found is that even though you can't place these on barren soil, check this out. You can place it where there's water on beach fronts. That's also another very powerful tool to have, and that's also another reason why we want to be on river fronts or beach fronts, whatever you want to call it. I think it's a river. Shouldn't call it a beach. So just the fact that we could just place that here and call it good. We can even place it here. It's outstanding. So keep that in mind when you're placing these. You can actually place these along the beachfront and get the bonuses. You won't be getting much, but for how much it costs and for it to have no labor, I think it's well worth it. I think it's very strong. And labor is going to become a huge issue for you on this 200% run. And going back to my thing about farming, at the beginning, you're going to be able to survive on berries and also probably hunting some of the living beings. So like this is going to give you some, prime meat. You can hunt these down. And then also just getting fish and then using hunting cabins on these forests. This doesn't really look like a forest, but imagine if you were to place down forester and then repopulate this with trees. But you absolutely need to get farming technology sooner than later. The reason why is because you will have plenty of berries on easier difficulties, but berries aren't as plentiful on the higher difficulties, and they purposely do that so that way you are rushed. Your meta kind of changes. So also make sure to be using your specialists to gather things that are near pollution piles, because they can't get irradiated. So grabbing berries over here or wood over here is perfect for sending a specialist. So those are the things that we want to use them. When it comes to research and technology, in my opinion, and this is again, this is just my opinion, you'll want to completely ignore this new DLC tech tree, the New Alliances tech tree. And you're probably wondering why. Why would we do that? The only thing that you might research at the beginning is this, and it's because you want to unlock schools so you can build a school in all the societies, because schools give you a trickle amount of reputation every day. It's really strong. Aside from that, I would actually ignore the rest of this DLC tech tree. And the reason why we're going to do that is because we're actually going to utilize how tasks and rewards work from societies. The thing about societies request board is that if you actually complete the task, or if you fail the task, but you don't claim the rewards or decline it, it stays in here indefinitely. And the funny part is that the reputation doesn't actually go up or down because of. So until they implement some sort of mechanic that has a decay function on this, or it times out, or they could still send in requests, why not utilize it? But some people might consider it cheesing, but there is a downside to this, so I'll get to that in a second. So it's not a perfect win-win. So if you never finish a task or complete the task from a society, your standing doesn't go up or down until you completely close out the task, and the rival can't go up in their eye. Unless you somehow mess up with them. There's other ways that you can, influence reputation. You can actually upset them in multiple ways, but at least when it comes to the request board, you can't mess with them. Now again, it might not resonate with a lot of people to do this, but if it means that you can survive the beginning and middle game to actually win the game, then by all means go ahead and do it. But know that this postpones, it doesn't cut out, it postpones a significant portion of difficulty and resource sinks until you can properly manage it mid to end game. And what I mean by that is building these buildings costs an insane amount of resources. It takes a resource to build it. It takes people to build this. It takes a building to build this. So you have to build a building to even build these things. It takes people to build them, and it takes a resource. So it's a huge time sink, and you also have to research these items in the first place to get to them. Right off the bat, you can't build taverns and kitchens or trenches and trading posts or even hospitals. You have to research. It's a small tech tree, but the fact is you still have to take away from the tech that you need from safety or that you need from infrastructure. So it's taking away those resources from you. It's taking away the science points. It's taking away the people. So I highly recommend is to keep these request board requests unclaimed or undeclined. With this method, we're ensuring we're not losing resources to this DLC and we can still win the game. If you don't prefer doing this, by all means ignore this and do it your own way. I'm just bringing up a method to make the game easier for you. However, there is a huge downside to this. As we mentioned before, since we are ignoring this, we can't build the surveillance fan, we can't build the secure lab, we can't build the bomb bunker, and we can't build this, the anti-propaganda tower. So what does that mean? There's no way to defend against sabotage or propaganda because you don't have these buildings. In this case, we have them now, but if we didn't have the surveillance fan, our colony theft protection would be the lowest. And so we'd be getting hit by theft, by propaganda, by sabotage. There's a lot of things that actually can hurt us pretty bad, especially the theft. The theft is the worst because it would take away all your money, and the propaganda is super bad because it makes your comfort go to zero, and then people end up just leaving. It's really hard to combat comfort. There's almost no way to really raise it up without having some sort of high level of entertainment. And you can see our balance is 58, pretty good, but you need it probably in the triple digits in order to combat a propaganda hit, because it's just that difficult. Theft and the propaganda tower, in my opinion, are super debilitating to the point where it actually halts progress for you and you end up not doing a lot of things. However, there is one way that you can help postpone this. It's still going to come out your way, but it's something to help with. Is when you are scouting the world map, min-max every sector before you move on. And what I mean by that is once you find another society like this, Rackham, you can see that we got pretty unfortunate. They were literally just one space away and we found. But as soon as you find another society, that's when the sabotages and the thefts start happening, because then you introduce the rival. The best thing for you to do is to min-max every sector before you move on to another one. And something to note is typically the societies form a ring, and you can kind of see these societies form a ring around, and that's how you can kind of figure out like where these societies are. There is like the off chance that like there's a society like way at the edge of the map over here. It's really weird, but it's more so just a general thing. Referring to my technology and research guide, everything up to step 8 is pretty much the same in my eyes. For a quick review, we want to focus on centralized repairs under the resources tab because we want to access metal scavenging. And the reason why we want to open up metal scavenging is because this allows us to get to the metal that's on the map and basically get past the gate of metal. There's a few gates in this game. One of them is metal, the other is concrete, and the last one I would say is probably components. This one is important because we can also get the advanced scrapper and the advanced recycler, and we want to unlock those immediately. You basically go here, 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 or here, depending on which one you have near your base. If you have a bunch of plastic near your base, go for the advanced recycler first. If you have a bunch of metal near your base, go advanced scrapper first. But you want to get these as soon as possible. You rush these down, because the reason why you do that is that the advanced version of these buildings allows you to get more metal on the map. It increases the conversion rate, effectively making more resources on the map. And this helps you postpone having to go all the way to get to industrial mining. And you saw how far we had to go down this tech tree. Industrial mining's pretty far down resources, and it takes a lot to get to this. It takes electricity, it takes concrete, and it takes all the tech to get to this stuff. Not only do we have to research that tech, we have to research electricity and power it. So if you can delay that as much as you can by getting these as soon as possible, you're going to be in a better position to win. Going here, Guardians is also now very important because of the rebirth monster attacks. And an easy way to fight this is to use 2 guards at the front to help fight attacks. And what I mean by that is that once you have a gate up, there's usually 2 slots available, so you can always have some guards here. You don't have to necessarily build guard towers. You can just use the 2 guards that are up here. I also recommend keeping a specialist at the base to help fight with the attacks as well. But beyond that, if you are getting attacked a lot, check out my rebirth guide on how to position guard towers correctly, and also using roads to funnel monsters. They actually follow roads, which is really funny. But you can see here I have like a death pit. Basically they would follow down this path and then just attack these. They never got to my base. Same thing here. They just followed the roads and they all converged, and they just fell into these towers, and they would just they couldn't do anything in a sense. It was really nice. So using these as a way to stop any monster attacks was really effective. Once you get to step 8, you need to review where you're at with things. If you were able to rush the techs up to step 8 and you don't have any issues with food yet, especially malnutrition, I would immediately recommend going to tenements. Get the communal living, get tenements. Tenements are going to hold you over pretty much till late game, in my opinion. Now, you can upgrade them to improve tenements, but I don't really see the point of it, because it's a lot of resources to get like a marginal improvement on happiness. At this point, you should also be looking into basic farming too, because malnutrition is going to be critical at this point because your berries have probably run out. So pick up basic farming and then find those spots on the map where you can use fertile soil. actually don't recommend reinforced gate. And the reason why is because reinforced gate, to repair it, uses metal, whereas the regular gate only takes wood to repair. We already know that resources are going to be pretty scarce on the map, so you want to be using your metal and plastic for other things aside from having to repair your front gate. And once you have that handled, I would recommend going to concrete scavenging, just because we want to make sure we get out of that gate as soon as possible. And at any point, and it doesn't matter when it happens, but at any point, if you start getting malnutrition, even after having basic farming, you need to go to communal eating as soon as possible, because you need to knock down malnutrition as soon as it happens, because it could spiral out of control very quickly. But the hope is that with fish, venison, farm food, and everything else that you scavenge on the world map, you can hold out till later. This is your key here. If it becomes an issue, immediately research this one, so that way you can start getting those vegetable meals and meat meals for more nutritious food. Typically, you can also avoid it by making sure that you have food storages all over your map. So we have food storages everywhere. We got some here. We got some here. You can see where we place them. We have them everywhere, especially where we're putting our cookhouses. So just something to make sure is that you're placing your food storages all over the map. We want to make sure our people have access to food wherever they are on the map. At this point, this is where things are going to start picking up very quickly, and you'll actually start going to infrastructure. It could typically be held off until mid-game, and once you go down infrastructure, that is, in my opinion, the mid-game, especially when you reach to wind power. In my opinion, it's like the pivotal point of where you start getting electricity and start using mid-game buildings by producing stuff like parts production, because that's probably the first building that you're going to use that takes electricity. Same thing with power source, motorization, or industrial mining. I like wind power because it happens day and night, but I also understand that sometimes you need to supplement with solar power and energy storage. If you need to, great. I recommend to do it on higher difficulties. I used to not recommend it at all because I thought this was a waste, but on higher difficulties, it's very difficult to actually get components, and solar panels, they take significantly less than wind turbines. So if we go here, we see it only takes 5. If we go to wind turbine, it takes 20. That's huge. That's a huge difference. We're getting 8 versus 13. We can produce 32 for the same price of components for producing 13 day and night. But if we supplement it with a battery, well, now we're producing 16 energy, supplemented by a battery. But again, thinking about, is it worth, how much energy we actually have to use versus how much is stored? A lot of things to take into consideration, but you get the point. Only 5 components versus 20. And also this takes parts too, so it's a pretty big difference. And I noticed as soon as I built this is actually where I first started building my wind turbines, is that the game started attacking my wind turbines like crazy. Like as soon as I built these, they just got hit by lightning, they got hit by meteors. I don't know if the game purposely goes after you for that reason. Like when you try to advance this thing, it's like, oh no, you gotta stay down. I don't know if they do that on purpose, but it's just something I've noticed. After you get down to wind power, I would recommend going to industrial mining, because now we have the ability to power these things. This with circuit assembly, actually I'd probably say this one and this one are the late game gates, because if you don't get, say, plastic or metal or concrete extractor, and you have no more above ground resources to actually harvest, you could soft lock yourself out of a game if you don't have the trading resources available. Now, sometimes you can get bailed out, like, oh, hey, thank God, there's metal available to trade. Okay, we could trade metal. But if you don't have the money for it, okay, well, now you're in trouble. But you get the idea. So you can see metal's the only thing available. No one's selling concrete. No one's selling plastic. So if that were the case, then we'd be in some trouble. And another thing too is that we also want to get to industrial mining, because we'll have to push out farther on the map. We started over here, like this was our beginner area. This is our campsite, colony center. You have to go further and further out to get to those good spots. And so you can see here, like, we had some spots over here. Luckily we have, our auto extractors, but you have to overextend yourself to get to these spots in the first place. And when you're getting attacked by a bunch of monsters, it makes it very difficult to combat. So the sooner you can just keep, your base localized to whatever spots that you have that are underground nearby, and keeping your base more compact and easier to defend, the better it is for you. So if you get to industrial mining and you set up one of each, the concrete extractor, the plastic extractor, and the metal extractor, as well as an electronics factory, and you have that all powered and going, in my opinion, you're almost certainly going to win the game. If you can get this far and get these milestones, in my opinion, it's very hard to fail at this point because you've put yourself up in a position to succeed. From here, just backfill your technology, what you didn't get early and mid game. So if you didn't really focus down on food, you only got to the basic farming, go ahead and start getting this because you need to do this. You can also start pushing in advanced farming if you want. Irrigation, in my opinion, uses way too much water. It's not worth it until like end game and you're just flaunting at that point, because this will raise your water requirements like crazy. You'll want to also look into entertainment, so just go ahead and backfill these, whatever it may be. And after you've covered like a large amount of bare necessities, that's when you start pushing into the late game stuff, so like large rotors and pushing into the auto extractors. These this alleviates the labor requirements. Delicacies are not worth it. I've never found a point where it's like, oh man, I really wish I had a cinnamon roll or some bread for my colony. They just never ask for it. This is just flaunting. So avoid this one until like you have nothing left to research, because this takes an insane amount of stuff to even create. You need to make wheat, you need to buy the seed for wheat, you need to have a mill that grinds the wheat into flour, and then you have the flour go into a bakery, which requires eggs and milk, which you need to get chickens and cows in a ranch, which also requires technology. So you can see it's a lot for not really a lot of payoff. And after you got all the late game techs that you want, only then is when I would start pushing into the new alliances tech tree, so that way you could get to the secure lab, the surveillance van, the bomb bunker, and the anti-propaganda tower to stop those things that are just debilitating you. Because at this point, if you followed that recommendation I said earlier, these are probably really hurting you. So the sooner you can stop that, the better. So let's go ahead and talk about just general tips and efficiencies and some layouts. Your decision making has to be on point, otherwise you'll lose. A prime example of this is resource management. So I like to have a centrally located housing district that is in a nice layout. And this is actually an example of one of the layouts that I use pretty readily. It's basing it around a burner or a radiator and then putting 4 tenements or houses in each quadrant. And then that radiator should pretty much cover all the houses that are in this area. You can actually expand it a bit more. You can see this one's kind of a bit more expanded. And I could fit 6 in this corner, 6 in this, or 7 in this one. I could probably fit 6 here if I had more space, but you kind of get the idea. This is a housing layout that I just have that makes really high efficient use of this energy consumption during winter storms. So instead of having to place a bunch of radiators all over the map, I could just put a bunch of housing that's covered by one radiator, and that works out really well. I also don't have to worry about upgrading this to a heated 2-story building. Not only is it 2 energy, look at the considerable amount of construction cost to upgrade this. Whereas I could just build this for 6.8 energy usage, and it's done. It covers all these houses. I don't have to upgrade any. Another layout that I like to use is the energy grid layout. And this is my prime example of it. I use a lightning tower or a lightning rod, whichever one that you have access to. Lightning rod just a bit smaller. You can see the difference in radius. This wouldn't cover as many, but we have the upgraded version. It does take more, and it does take more resources. So you can see the difference is here. Pretty big difference, especially those electronics. Those electronics are very pricey to make. What this does is that it protects all these wind turbines from getting shocked. So well worth the investment for a lightning tower, because I think a lightning rod can only take like a hit, maybe 2, whereas this can get hit multiple times. You could see 85%. It got hit once and it lost only 15%. It's pretty good. Another tip here is look at your producing buildings like a tailor. Look at what they require to make the clothing. So in here we need fiber and we need metal. So here what we could be doing is we already have the fiber requested, so what we could be doing here is using the request resource button to request metal as well. So we could just put this here, boom. Now they're going to bring over the metal and store it here once there's more room, and so that way our people don't have to walk as far to get the resources that they need to produce another piece of clothing. It makes their job more efficient when they have to walk less to get a resources that they're looking for. Sooner or later, your hope is actually going to become a very big issue. Hope is going to be absolutely debilitating, and your colony actually might fall into a runaway cycle where hope falls to a minimum level. Once hope is low enough, colonists will turn hostile. Even if you have, your trauma center ready to go, it's very hard to get out of, because once a colonist turns hostile and attacks you, you couple that with a recent death from them attacking you, you get the debuff under your welfare and comfort, and it just keeps going. It keeps getting negative. And if you don't clean up the body, it gets even worse, because you can have a witnessing decay debuff, which is worse than recent death. So whatever you can, make sure that your hope does not go to 0, because once it goes to 0, extremely hard to get up. Very, very difficult. Some recommendations to help get out of it is to use the hope square. You can use large feast if you have it, but a small feast will get you can see how much it will recover. I think it should go up all the way, so let's go ahead and find out. Yeah, so that pushes us back up. And here's a perfect example. We just got stolen from, right? Even though we have high protection. Yes, it probably could be at the highest level, but we are still in the high protection level, and we still got stolen from. So again, even though we have the high level, it's not a perfect defense. Another pro tip is to make sure you have a minimum of 2 survivor outposts in an urban biome. You can see in the bottom right when my mouse is in this biome, so you could switch biomes. See how it changes in the bottom right? You want it to be an urban one, because you could see the bubbles on survivors is full, whereas you have it on a plains biome, it's only 3. But this allows you to have the maximum amount of rate of which survivors come in. So in this case, it's 0.52. This one is also 0.52. I think we have a few others that might be different. This is 0.54. But the important thing is that it's in an urban one, or at least one that has a high amount of survivors. If you put it in like here, like a wasteland, it's 2. There's not really much going on there. It's kind of a waste. But on this run, I have 5 outposts, and to get 300 at the I got 300 or over 300 at the end of my game, but my population kept swinging between 75 and 150 for the majority of the game due to the catastrophes. And at certain points of the game, my colony or my map would look like this, like no one was employed. I have these turned off, like these, I don't want anyone working here, but majority of my map would just be doing that because like I didn't have enough people. But because I had these survivor outposts, it made a world of a difference, because I could just click this, take in the survivors. I can't take them in right now because I have a massive amount of people, but I would take them in, and it would help replenish the people that are lost during a catastrophe or during a propaganda attack. You'll be pulling from these outposts quite often, and as unfortunate as it is, you need to ensure that you have this safety net to help bounce back from any bad events. And my last tip to you is actually to make sure to utilize money makers. There are actually some very easy money makers that are on the world map, and what I mean by that is if you say got a survivor or a scavenging outpost for fun boxes early enough, that's really good. Another good one is rare metals, and the last one that I recommend is automatic rifles. So I always put scavenger outposts in these. The reason why is if we go to a trade and we try to trade with someone and we want to trade those items I was just talking about, automatic rifles come in at a pretty regular pace. Not only does it help defend your colony against the rebirth monsters and bandits that attack you, you could sell your excess rifles, and you can get some really good money for selling these. Same thing for herbs. I found herbs is fantastic. You just build one greenhouse at the beginning of the game, fill it with herbs, and you can make so much money by selling this. I had like over 3,000 herbs, and I sold it for so much money. You can also sell your excess lunar dust if you want, but I personally don't recommend it because I find that overtiming is far more important than this. But you can sell other things too, like antibody, anti-stress, and then the rare metals here. We don't use this until late game when we're producing components and electronics, but we have plenty of excess, especially if you have a bunch of scavenging outposts that are collecting these too. So I would recommend not selling rare metals unless you have a scavenging outpost. But everything else, especially like oil, and also interestingly enough, fuel is also a really good thing to have. But in this case, obviously we don't want to sell to them because they get upset with us. But fund boxes are a good one too, especially if you have excess, you know, you can get a pretty good amount. So get those money makers for you. Herbal plants or herbs is, you know, my secret, as well as automatic rifles. Those things are fantastic to sell. I highly recommend it. I wouldn't recommend selling your medicine, components, or electronics. Never sell those. But you could pretty much sell everything else that you see fit. And see, even when we sell bread, it's only worth 3. So like all this effort to make bread, and it's not even worth a lot. So, well, that's all I got for this video. I hope this helped you. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, hit them up in the comments down below. And if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button. And as always, I'll see you guys next time, and have a good one.